Discover the fun of live music with a night out at the San Francisco Symphony. Gather with friends and be inspired while you take in some of the most famous music in the world. Experience iconic classical works, breathtaking orchestral brilliance, and the power of music to inspire. Tickets start at just $30. Find your concert at sfsymphony.org. That's sfsymphony.org.
Welcome to the Going to Killing City podcast, a historical look at murder in Kansas City. Here are your hosts, Jamie Green and Alex Greenwood.
Welcome back, everybody. So excited to be here. It's February. And Alex, we are upping our game. I don't know. Did you comb your hair? Are you ready? We've got somebody who actually knows what the heck they're talking about, and it's sure not you and me.
Right.
Former Jackson County Prosecutor Gene Peters Baker in the house. Gene, welcome to Going to Killing City podcast.
Thank you for having me. You tell me when it's the right time to chastise you both over your name of your podcast.
Listen, you can tell we do get that a lot. It's like, you're
do
not.
You?
Oh, I had the lady go, "You're not helping."
Okay.
That would be Jamie who named that. That was Jamie.
Okay. We're not to that point yet, so we can go on. We'll keep going. Yeah.
Okay.
Have some of our cocktails, Gene. You'll relax as time goes on.
It's right. What's a name?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. We're sweethearts. Okay.
Right. But it's so cool to have you. I obviously we have lots of mutual friends, Gene, and I follow your career. I'm very much in awe of what you did and the guts that you showed in office. But tonight it's about having fun and being relaxed because you're out of office. You can take what you want, right? So that's awesome. So we're just going to delve in, but real quick, this month's sponsor is our good friends from West Bottoms Whiskey. Yes. They want you to know all about their Convergence whiskey. Convergence whiskey embodies the rich history combining rye and single malt whiskeys into a distinctive blend, which rests in a Malbec wine cask for its finish. This cask,
good.
I know. This cask resting process allows time and tradition to merge into one uniquely blended whiskey that honors both classic and modern whiskey making techniques. It's very yummy. Have you been down to the West Bottoms, Gene? Have you been to their facility?
I definitely have. Oh man, yeah,
it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. Yes,
we do a great
fan. I'm a fan.
I'm a fan too. And you know what I love is that it's sometimes I feel like it's almost a sin to make a cocktail with their whiskey. It's so nice, just neat. But I get over that real quick and make some great cocktails with it as well. Great stuff from West Bottoms. And by the way, I just say they are the coolest folks to us. They take such good care of us. They're actually telling people that they're on a sponsor, and we just can't appreciate them nearly enough. It's just great stuff. Absolutely great stuff.
And moving right along. So we have our second update. This podcast has been going on along. For folks that know, the first update was, of course, when we had the dog crate lady who let the guy go in Kansas, and he passed away last year. But this is one of Alex's. So Alex, let's talk about La Pistolera. You were very scared of this woman for a very long time.
I was terrified of La Pistolera, but I would tell you, we've still got to get the Robert Stack saying update thing from Unloved Mysteries. It's got to go update. All right, anyway. Guys, you may recall, if you go back in time to an episode we did kind of early on, it was called La Pistolera, and it was about a woman who was really good with a gun in a way, even though she had basically murdered her husband and then tried to pin it on a 2-year-old baby. She managed to kind of get away with that. She escaped from jail. She had all kinds of crazy adventures. They allegedly had escaped to Mexico, and I was just kind of nervous because she was a very wily person. Her name was Sharon Kinney, but trust me, if you've not gone back and listened to it, it's on November 25th, 2023, La Pistolera. The update, cue the music and all that. She We didn't know where she was, but Fox 4 reported that the FBI confirmed her fingerprints matched those of someone named Deidre Glabus, who died in 2022. The CBC in Canada reported that she had been living in the small Alberta town of Taber since at least 1973. This was discovered after the Jackson County Sheriff's Office received an anonymous tip that advised that Kinney had been living in Alberta under that name, Deidre Glabus. Police subpoenaed the funeral home in Taber and received her fingerprints. Kinney and her husband, Jim Glabus. Jamie, how many husbands now would that woman have? 4, 5?
5.
And they all died. Okay, because here's the thing. So get this. Her husband, they owned the Tabor Motel, and they worked as realtors before Jim's death from diabetes and alcoholism in 1979 at the age of 38. That totally fits her because nobody lasts long with La Pistolera. Nobody. Nobody. To finish up, in 1982, she married Willie L., who died in 2011 at the age of 79. So you know what? He broke the streak. During her time in Tabor, Kinney served as the chair of a daycare center steering committee and was known for playing bridge and killing people. So I do sleep better knowing. I got that text from Jamie last night. And he says, you'll sleep again. Because I was worried that she would come after us. She's just that crazy. If you haven't listened to that one, folks, if we say so ourselves, it's a fun one. It's a fun one.
I mean, you get Mexican Prison Break. She was on Unsolved Mysteries, Gene, like with Robert Stack, like the old.
Yeah,
and she got away with it. She got away.
She got away with it, Gene. I mean, she lived out her days.
It happens, y'all.
It probably happens more than people think. You know.
I'm afraid. Yeah.
She died at the age of 82. So, rest in whatever, La Pistolera. Now that your pistol's gone cold, we'll sleep better at night. But anyway, that's the update.
The updates.
Grammy Award-winning violinist Joshua Bell returns to the San Francisco Symphony. Experience the power, precision, and passion of one of the world's great violinists. Hear Joshua Bell in Brahms' famed Violin Concerto with the Academy of St. Martin in the Fields. That's Joshua Bell, March 1st at the San Francisco Symphony. Tickets at sfsymphony.org.
So for Gene, who is joining us live, and for folks that the construct of this podcast is we do historic murders that have to be strange, crazy, weird, not just usual, which La Pistolera was certainly that. One of us writes
with the Kansas City connection.
She does. She was from Independent.
Okay.
One of us writes the episode. The other one gives the hint to the person. Well, Gene's actually going to give us all the information in the episode, but Gene told me what it was. So my hint to Alex was the Blair self-snitch project.
Yeah. So that's all I know. So I have to come up with a cocktail, and then we flip it every month. That's how this works. So I came up with this. It's called the Stool Pigeon because I heard snitch, right? So a Stool Pigeon cocktail is a sour drink. It's made with a little apple brandy, some grenadine syrup, and of course some West Bottoms whiskey. And the name comes from a famous gangster stool pigeon. So here's how you do it. It's so simple. You get 1 ounce of your West Bottoms whiskey of choice, and there are many to choose from, many variations of this drink. Get about 1 ounce of apple brandy or applejack, dash of grenadine syrup, fresh lime juice to taste. You can make this all the way into almost whiskey sour territory with all that lime juice. I'm not so big on that. I don't want lime cutting into the taste of the whiskey, so I just put a little dash of that. And then you can just garnish it with a thin, nobody can see it, but a thin apple slice, which now that it's resting precariously on the edge, it's going in the drink. So that's the Stool Pigeon, and tell nobody how this drink is made because snitches get stitches.
That's right. It's a great, and Gene, did you make it? Are you drinking it?
I made it. I made my version of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Alex,
we have so many people who say, "Yeah, it's great." Turns out, usually it's rye and a rock, and they're happy. And I'm like, "Hey, whatever you need."
I threw in the grenadine and the lime.
There you go.
I'm out of apples. But like the tariffs are going to take over for the apples. I probably should have just made a run and put a bushel.
Well, that's true because that to the core is going to be something that will be expensive, stemming from tariffs. Is that enough on the apples, the core, and the stemming? I'm done.
Hope so.
I'm handing it over to you, my friend, because yes, I should.
All right.
Actually, as I think about it, we're going to be okay on the apples, guys.
Yeah, we can go to
We're
West.
going to be okay on apples.
Go to Weston and get some apples. That's what we'll do.
Right.
So, Gene, I mean, this is kind of your story, but I did a little bit of research on this, and you know, I had a toddler, or not even. I had a toddler and an infant in 2004. So I was pretty busy and sleep deprived. So most of this I didn't remember. This is one of the craziest cases I've ever seen, and I think the thing that makes it, and you know, I'm dying to hear your take on this, but this family, Gene. I mean, I literally made a matrix for me and Alex to keep track of who was who and who did what. So can you take us back a little bit? When did you first know about Terry Blair? Tell us about that. When did you first hear the name?
Well, the office I worked for, Jackson County Prosecutor's Office, I worked as an assistant prosecutor a little bit longer than I actually worked as the elected prosecutor. It was important to me that not get inversed. So about 15 years I served as an assistant prosecutor. And that's when the Blair name was one of those names that you knew. There's a handful of those in Kansas City where you're like, oh, another one. There's another one. But Blair was one of those. And but they weren't known as serial killers. You know, Terry was definitely fit that category. And so I started learning about that case because I worked in the office in 2004, and the case slowly came together.
Gene, for the audience, what is the criteria to be a serial killer? How many people do you have to kill, or is it the method, or how does that work?
I think it's just 3. Yeah, you kill 3. I think it's an FBI standard, so I haven't looked at that in a while because, you know.
Seems like a lot, Gene, to me.
Just 3. That's it.
Well, so what is a spree killing different than a serial killing? Spree killings?
I'm not sure I could be the expert on that. I'm sure I could look up the FBI website.
It just seems sprees are like more devil may care, but I don't know. All right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, perhaps you got to kill him at different times. I don't know. If whatever the case is, Terry definitely fits the bill.
Got it.
So so let's we're going to step back a little bit. So Terry Blair was an individual and his family. They lived pretty close to Prospect, right, on Kansas City.
Yeah.
Correct. And Terry's first, I don't want to say, running with the law because it wasn't him, but it was because when he was 17 years old, he actually witnessed when his mother murdered his stepfather or common law husband. What's the background on that?
I think it was actually even earlier than that. I think it was early. I think the story goes, whether or not I can't, tell you the veracity of the story because this would have predated me. But the story goes that Terry Blair, his brother Walter, and I forget the name of the sister, but all 3 of them were seated on, a couch watching cartoons as police were going through the home to the body of the paramour. So Terry's mom had murdered her paramour, her live-in boyfriend at the time, and she was charged with that murder. And as the story goes, again, this is what, old time detectives, recount the story, is that these 3 kids sat on that sofa and continued to watch cartoons as they went through the house. I mean, that seems kind of odd. I kind of hope part of that story is not true, but that was the story retold to me, in the early 2000s when Terry came back.
Right. So his mom was Janice Blair. The common law husband was a guy named Elton Gray.
Yeah.
And she she pleaded something, and I don't mean I'm not an attorney. My wife's an attorney, but I'm not an attorney, where you basically say, yeah, I did it, but I don't admit to I don't want to serve me. What's that called, Gene? What's the legal?
I think she pled to a lesser charge. And again, I didn't look up her history again, but she pled to some degree of manslaughter. And it's called an Alford plea, where she doesn't have to, confess, but the prosecutor then has to lay out all the facts that they have at their disposal that would lead to the conviction of this person. Should all these facts be presented, you would agree that you will be found guilty. or there's a substantial likelihood that you'd be found guilty.
And I think it's one of those things that I don't think everybody as a kid thinks, oh, my parents were mean or my parents stuff. I think most of us were really fortunate. We had good, solid homes to grow up in. I can't even imagine being one of these three children sitting there watching, as you said, KCPD's going up the stairs because there's a dead body upstairs. I mean, it's
correct. Yeah.
And I think it's going to get to our theme later about, how much of this is his own, how much of this is what he grew up in, there's so many things at play. And I'm obviously not a criminologist. It's not my background, but I think we get it. So Terry grows up and in 1982, he killed his pregnant girlfriend, Angela Monroe.
Uh-huh.
They'd already had 2 kids together, correct?
That's right.
She was pregnant with their third, and did he choke her to death? Do you remember what was?
I think he bludgeoned her to death. And then there's some level of strangulation that I was told was part of that case as well, because it relates to the women that I worked on his next case, where the multiple women were killed off of Prospect, off the avenue. And those women were largely strangled to death.
Grammy Award-winning violinist Joshua Bell returns to the San Francisco Symphony. Experience the power, precision, and passion of one of the world's great violinists. Hear Joshua Bell in Brahms' famed Violin Concerto with the Academy of St. Martin in the Fields. That's Joshua Bell, March 1st at the San Francisco Symphony. Tickets at sfsymphony.org.
So he gets convicted at the time.
Correct.
He goes to jail, and and please correct me if I'm wrong, but he goes to jail. He's basically in jail until December 2004. He
Right.
gets out of jail, and he almost instantly starts killing people again.
That's right. So I think he did get out a little bit early on his sentence, but this is how it works. People don't realize that, you don't, what we say, 12 your time, you don't do day for day. And that's up to the parole board, so that's under the auspices of the governor. So that's how that system gets managed. Now, there are certain metrics that you have to follow, and he did a substantial part of his sentence. So as I recall, he got 23 years and he ended up doing, close to 22, which is a substantial amount of the time that he went down for.
So
but he comes out and he's got a little bit of parole left on his sentence. So you get out of prison, you still got to report in to your parole officer every so often.
So as a prosecutor, and I don't even want to think how many times that you've dealt with people that you had somebody convicted of murder. This seems really rare that someone spends that much time in prison and just instantly goes back. I mean, I assume it happens sometimes, but is this more the exception than the norm?
It isn't the norm. We get a lot of flack for this, about the failures of the criminal justice system. Why can't we fix people? Why can't we give a sentence that, that kind of eradicates any kind of future bad behavior? And it's really hard for any of us in the system, including judges, to forecast 20 years down the road and what is someone going to be like. So, it's difficult, to understand, for us to determine what's the right number. And the little trick here is the right number is usually banked on available evidence. How strong is the evidence? Not how weak or kind your prosecutor is. It's really, you did this, you sized up the evidence and you're like, whew, I could lose, I got a couple weaknesses here in my case. I want to try and get the best deal I can for public safety, so you put together the best deal you can craft based on available evidence.
It totally makes sense. So let's talk a little bit of what was Prospect Avenue like back in 2004, Jean? I mean, I assume you had a lot of crime issues there. Can you
we really did. It's so different today. It's just that part and we're talking about the 20s, like about 23rd Street to about 28th Street, that stretch. And while there's still crime there, because there's crime everywhere, but it really has substantially changed. That neighborhood just does not look like it did in the early 2000s. There's been some development over there, including a new police station. East Zone Police Station is there in Kansas City, Missouri. And next to it is the Kansas City Crime Lab. Mm-hmm. And then across the street, has been some development through Modest Miles Church.
I think it's important just to kind of set the scene of this. So it's the late summer, early fall, 2004. And like I said, we're two public policy schmoes. We're not not in your world. Does somebody from the police department first come to you and say, this guy that's on parole, I think he might be involved? Like, how did this work for you? When did you guys hone in on this guy?
So, the office has changed a little bit over time. When I took over, I made prosecutors that were, assigned to this kind of duty, the 24-hour service that we have to be on call for. I made them go out to the scene of every homicide. And I mean, that's a lot. I asked a lot of my folks to do that. But I used to, go myself when I was an assistant prosecutor. I didn't go out on any of Terry Blair's cases because I wasn't on call during that patch of time. But my then boss was just this great trial lawyer, and he started working the case. And I was largely working in sex crimes at the time. So my specialty became prosecuting forcible rapes, sexual assaults, molestation of kids. And there's certainly a bleed over here from Terry Blair's, murders to forcible rapes. So then I got engaged on the case after it had been charged. But, and worked in the office. And when you get a guy like Terry Blair, it's interesting. And, if you're a prosecutor worth your salt, you're going to go find out about that case and learn about it. So, of course, I did.
And to kind of muddy the waters, I don't know anything. So this is back when the first 48 was a big TV show on A&E. And the TV cameras were following around the Kansas City Police Department detectives. Was that right? What was I saw the judge admonish somebody in the you're shaking your head. No, we're an audio podcast. All right, Gene, please tell me what's wrong.
Yeah. Okay. Which your viewers can't see was me pulling my hair out of my head. Still, all these years later, I still I want to strike something because I'm instantaneously angry. Yeah, so the police allowed the producers of 48 Hours to follow them around. And where it really came to burn us in this particular case is at that time in 2004, the police did not record their interrogations of suspects. Sounds crazy, but that's how they did it back then. And although prosecutors were clamoring, you've got to record these, you have to record them. The reason we wanted them to record them is because, we needed to enter into the era that we were in. People don't just believe the police. A jury's not going to believe you when I say, okay, officer, and what did Mr. Blair say to you next? And how can you prove that? Oh, well, I don't know. You were the only two in the room. So you need to record those. They didn't record Terry Blair's interrogation. Seems like an awfully important one to have recorded, but they didn't. And deep breath. It shouldn't make me this angry this many years later. But they cracked the door open to the interrogation room and allowed 48 Hours to film at least part of that interrogation.
Oh, good God.
Through the crack of the door. And, you guys can imagine with the business that you're in, what a battle it was for the prosecutor to try and get what footage 48 Hours had and their willingness to give it to us. We just couldn't get it, except for what they publicly aired. And when you are trying to potentially put a man to death, put this man to death, I need the very best evidence that's available. I can't go forward on, half a loaf, somebody once in my office famously described sometimes the investigations that we would receive on homicides as a half-baked cake, and that by the time we needed to take it to a jury, we needed a fully baked cake that had icings and probably some sprinkles on it, we needed it to be good. We needed to look good. So this was really an awful battle that we had to engage in and lost. And so, of course, who gets the admonishment? Me. And the other lawyer on the case, who was my boss at the time, he and I, we are the ones that got our ears pinned back by the judge. We were the ones trying to defend KCPD's actions, and the judge just wasn't having it. And so, that's just how it goes. The court system is not for the faint of heart, and you have to. Let me say, probably me as a prosecutor that had some pretty public conflicts with police. Mm-hmm. All prosecutors should have conflicts with police. It is literally their job to grade the test of police. And so when that judge was, publicly chastising us, which you should have seen heard the things he said to us in chambers. But, he was a lot kinder to us when he was being filmed in a courtroom. And he told us, you prosecutors, you're going to go tell the police department, that they need to change their policy. So bluntly, that's the wrong way for this to be done. Yeah. Prosecutors should not be admonished by a judge to go tell the police what they did wrong. Prosecutors need to do that on the front end. We need to go manage that conflict right up front, because when the prosecutor is not willing to manage that kind of conflict with police, a judge will do it for you. And that's painful, and it hurts your case.
Gene, could I just as an aside, what and just your speculation, if you don't really know, what was the justification for that? What good did it serve to have a camera crew following the police around? Why did they do that?
Well, I don't know for sure. I wasn't engaged in any kind of policy discussions back in 2004, but I do remember a police chief in Kansas City that I had a whole lot of conflict with had decided to bring in, I believe it was 48 Hours again, some company like that. And when I found out about it, I was like, no way, man. Like, no, nope, you can't do it. His thought was, this is really good PR for the police. This gives, the world sees us on how hard we work and how difficult our jobs are, and they appreciate us more for what we do. And, that there's probably part of that is true, because police officers' jobs are incredibly hard, and they're draining, and they're probably not resourced, like they need to be all places at all times. Right. So I want to give police that, because I think that's probably fair. But the same can be said about prosecutors, and I'll be damned if 48 Hours is going to follow me around. No. Not with my consent, they're not. I mean, I got shit to do. Right. It ain't gonna look pretty all the time. I got stuff to do, and judges as well. Trust me, 48 Hours was not filming the complete ass raping we took in chambers for the decision of police to allow 48 Hours to film inside that room.
I think part of it too, and I think, we're all old enough to remember the OJ case. People act differently when they're being filmed, even if they think they aren't, but they all do, because they know it's being filmed. Yeah. And that, if you're trying to have an integrity of a case, right, that's a problem.
Yeah.
I'll interject if I could, just that back in the early days of my PR career, 48 Hours, I was at the Oklahoma City bombing. I was working at the hospital. 48 Hours came, and they scrubbed up to go into surgery with one of our victims, a kid.
Wow.
And I had to scrub up and go in as if, why do I hold a scalpel? What am I doing here? But no, but it's just to keep an eye on the crew. But this is the thing, Gene. I observe these physicians and surgeons who are brilliant. Their demeanor was completely different when there was cameras in the room. And I'm not saying it diminished care. I'm not saying anything like that.
Yeah.
But to me, and I was a very junior person then, because as you can see, I'm still quite young. But I could tell you, I didn't say anything. But later I told my boss, I said, this seems less like good PR than grandstanding. And I'm just curious why we're allowing it. And he didn't have a good answer other than that's what the higher ups wanted. So anyway, I know it's not apples and apples, but I just wanted to buttress Jamie's point. I've literally seen these people that you're talking about, and their job is to get the story. They are the only profession enshrined in the Constitution, for goodness sake, right? The press, okay, fair enough. But I just question how often you want to be shadowed by a camera.
Grammy Award-winning violinist Joshua Bell returns to the San Francisco Symphony. Experience the power, precision, and passion of one of the world's great violinists. Hear Joshua Bell in Brahms' famed Violin Concerto with the Academy of St. Martin in the Fields. That's Joshua Bell, March 1st at the San Francisco Symphony. Tickets at sfsymphony.org.
Well, I think for me, it takes on a different import inside the criminal justice system. Like I said, Terry Blair, for quite a while, we were seeking the death penalty against Terry Blair. So that means myself and my colleague, my boss at the time, was going to ask a jury or a judge to kill this man for his crimes. Yeah. And so I need, for a case like that, there can be no questions. There can be, well, what part does 48 hours have of that recording that they didn't turn over?
Great.
And you can't have it. That's just not a mistake you can ever make in the criminal justice system. Now, let's take the death penalty off the table. We were definitely asking that Terry Blair be sent to prison for the very rest of his natural life, that he would never again breathe free air. And that too, I need this, the integrity of the system requires of prosecutors that we have the very, very, very best evidence to go forward on, and that it is unquestionable of his guilt.
Yeah, you don't want to, you're talking about tainting evidence. You're talking about just creating a situation where things are. So the judge was furious because it's kind of a trope you see on all the TV shows. The judge is always looking like he's really had a bad corned beef sandwich. He's in a really bad mood. But just if you don't mind, Gene, but when a judge gets that way at you, it's not always performative. It's sometimes Is it a legit outrage at you are damaging what we're supposed to be doing here by this kind of activity? Could you just give me a little insight into why we have that angry judge trope in TV and stuff besides the dramatic effect? So
look, we've stepped into sort of this whole new era in policing and law enforcement. I used to hear all the time, that I didn't make police officers feel good enough about their job and their role. And I'm like, that is not my job. That's not your job. That's not my job. And if I'm not willing to do my job, who's going to do it? A judge. Mm. Or if not that judge, the next panel of judges. You cannot mess around in the criminal justice system. When you get inside a courtroom, this has real consequences, for victims' families, for the interest of justice. You got to get it right. And I want to say for the police that worked on that case, they had no way. They didn't intend any of this, to happen. And I'm guessing those detectives that were on this case didn't make any of those decisions, right, about whether or not 48 hours was coming to follow them around or not. They just, were told there they are. So I can't really blame them either. It was just a really terrible, terrible position to be placed in. And one that you can see still makes me, a little angry, because it's just such a, we had such a battle royale with the available evidence that we had, because Terry Blair, his bodies, the women that he killed, they were in really stages of decomposition, and it really impaired our ability to get DNA evidence. And so it was tough. It was a tough case for us. And, the fact that 48 hours was interjected here just created a major unforced error that you can't have. Yeah. You just can't have it on these cases, which is why, a couple of police chiefs ago, I was like, hey, God, no. I said, let 48 hours come in. Just make sure they're on a Platte County case or a Clay County case, not in Jackson County. They can't be in Jackson. So you do what you want up north of the river, but if it's at the river and south, not in my jurisdiction.
So, Gene, I know we had these. I'm sorry, Alex, you okay?
No, you go.
And I really appreciate this, because I think this is really important. And one of the things so you had said something that you have interaction with the family members. And I think that, whether it's 48 hours or the Kansas City Star, whoever, there's way too much focus on the people doing the killing. Can you talk to us about these 6 unfortunate women that did nothing wrong in their lives, and they were basically thrown in an alley or behind a building, like they were a piece of trash? Can we talk about those people, please?
We can, and I think we should also talk about that neighborhood. The 20s on Prospect, right? Because I had such a personal connection with that part of town at the time. I have a little girl that I had adopted, and her auntie lived on that street, lived at 24th and Montgall. And I remember seeing all the little push pins. We did it really scientific in the prosecutor's office, push pins on a map where each one of the bodies were found. Wow. And I remember gasping, at one point, and my boss standing next to me is like, oh my God, what is it? And I'm like, my God, Wanda lives right in the center of all of these, and it strikes you different when it's someone you love and you care about, that there was so little concern and care for this part of my city, right, that it could literally be littered with bodies, and he almost got away with it. He told on himself, thank God, by calling police, he masked his voice. But what does that say? What does that say about us, right? What does it say about us that this part of town where, so now I'm going to say my auntie lives, and she goes to work every day. She pays taxes. She's just a really great human being. And, she still lives there, by the way. She's still there.
Really?
Yeah, she's still there. And I guess I just think there's such really wonderful, wonderful people that live there. And so I bristle when people call it, and I used to do this too, a crime-ridden neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
I bristle with that because, yes, there is probably higher rates of crime there. I can't argue, certain statistics. But I can argue for the people that live there. They're really decent, honest people that are really trying their damnedest, to stay afloat, maybe potentially to try and get ahead in this world. And it's really, really, really hard there. It's just hard. Everything there is harder. It may be hard to live in Brookside, and afford the mortgage that comes with that. But where it's real hard.
Brookside. Let's be honest.
It's real, real damn hard on the.
I had to move. Okay.
You had to move. We feel for you.
Yeah,
we feel for you leaving that rough neighborhood of Brookside.
So 6 women. I mean, part of this too, in a really short amount of time. I mean, we're still talking about Jack the Ripper, Gene, as a
Yeah.
I was just thinking that, Jamie.
This is more than I think. Jack the Ripper killed 5. We still like, and I'm one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on is because I think it's important to remember these people.
But there's actually 8.
It's 8.
8.
You think there's
there was
more,
additional right? There was additional forcible rape counts. You know, there was a first-degree assault because one woman survived her killing.
Because he broke them all, right? And he broke one next too, which is just horrifying.
Correct. And so, you know, these women were all, I shouldn't say all of them, that's not true. The majority of them were working as sex workers. And that is the allegation that Terry made about his first girlfriend that he ended up going to prison for killing, that she too became a sex worker, and it made him, you know, angry, and he thought a certain way about these women in that act. But he was paying them for sex.
Yeah.
And the story goes with first wife that she prostituted herself to bring in income for that family. So, you know, Terry Blair is a really conflicted soul wherever he may be. That he thought this way about them, but he was also using the service.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a lot to unpack there, right? I mean, that's kind of the story that's as old as time, right? That there wouldn't be sex workers if there weren't men that hired sex workers.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
And in this case, there are 2 other women that were murdered. The judge severed out some of our counts so that, you know, in a separate case, we were left with 2 other women's bodies along with some forcible rapes. And that first degree assault. And when the death penalty was removed from, you know, in negotiations, death penalty was removed. We agreed not to try those other cases should we be successful on the remaining counts we had left.
Gene, do you support the death penalty for people like Terry Blair?
So I'm going to answer this in a way that's going to be a little bit more convoluted, because as prosecutor, I would encounter people that I would have to ask that question.
Right.
What do you want us to do here? You know, it's your loved one. What are you seeking? And I hated asking that question because it's sometimes the first time people ever thought of it.
Right.
And you really have to sit with that for a while, because if the death penalty is issued, you're going to be living with that person for a long, long, long damn time. And they may die of natural causes before they're actually put to death in the state of Missouri. That's just, you know, presently how it works. Now, for me, as a prosecutor, I took very seriously that I took an oath of office, and the oath was that I will follow the law. Right. Now, there's room for discretion in there, but it doesn't give me the discretion to say I will never pick the death penalty. Not when I raised my hand and I said, "Hey, Jackson County, I want to do this job. I want to do this job for you." I don't have that kind of discretion in the job. So if I didn't have the ability to go forward with death, I couldn't accept the job. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And what you're saying too is just like, look, I knew what I was getting into when I raised my hand, you know, for this job. You knew. You went into this with your eyes wide open. And
but even when I worked on Terry Blair's case, knowing, you know, that I wasn't in the driver's seat on what was going to happen, whether or not we continued with the death penalty or not. That was in the hands of my boss and the elected prosecutor at the time. However, I remember being weighted by it. Yeah. I was weighted by it back then. I'm glad, bluntly, that I had the opportunity to be weighted with the burden of that kind of decision making and decisions made by other people that I was going to have to follow through and carry out before I was the gal making the decisions, you know, because I know what that feels like. I know what the burden feels like. And, before I left the office, I had proceeded forward with a death penalty case. And that is the individual that killed a court reporter, a court process server, and a police officer. And so that case is still pending in the office as a death case.
Well, I know we don't want to keep you too long, but so basically though, how did we end up here? Because there's so many details, so many layers to this. I know we could go and tease that out, and I have a few questions to Jean just about in general, but the Terry Blair case though, did you actually sit across a table from this guy?
Yeah. Okay, I got one story I have to tell you about that, because this turned out to be a bench trial, so it was just the judge, no jury.
Right. No jury, yeah.
Terry Blair had two fabulous defense lawyers. They were public defenders, and they were outstanding. I mean, they were both really, really good. And so we all, we get called back to the courtroom because it's verdict day, and the judge calls us in, and he's going to issue his verdict. And so we all, we go running in there, and I'm seated, it's just one table. So it's myself and my boss on one side. On the other side of the table, like literally an arm's length over, is Terry Blair and his two lawyers. So in between Terry and I on the table, there's nothing on the table, which is unusual, but we all kind of racing downstairs, to get the verdict. We didn't know it was, necessarily going to be coming. And so anyway, we all kind of raced down, and we're sitting there while the judge is pronouncing it, or about to pronounce it. But there's a paper clip on the table. That's it. One paper clip. And it's a little closer to Terry than it is to me. And so I just remember, like worrying about that paper clip. And so I just casually reached across and grabbed the paper clip for myself, because I thought,
I wouldn't put it past him.
This guy could do with a paper clip, but let's not find out. So,
oh my God! But did you ever have to directly speak with him and ask him questions and look him in the eye?
You're really not allowed to do that, but you do literally sit across the table from him throughout the course of the case.
Yeah.
So, he was extremely well behaved. He was pretty stoic throughout that whole trial. And, I never know for sure what to expect, but that's what he brought. Okay, there's one other piece I got to offer you guys.
Please.
So remember that story about the three siblings seated on the couch?
Right.
Yeah.
Watching cartoons.
Yeah.
The brother on the couch was Walter Blair.
Mm-hmm.
Walter Blair was actually put to death by my old office, the Jackson County Prosecutor's Office, before I worked there, for capital murder. And he actually was put to death by the state of Missouri. And the sister, seated on the couch as well, was also convicted of murder.
So this is kind of this is my biggest question. So, there's all this, sociologists talk about this all, right? Is nature or nurture, right? Is it
right?
What do you think? I mean, we've been doing this podcast. We're almost at the end of season 2. We've had crazy things from Johnny Lazia. We've run the gamut. I mean, we've had stuff. I've never seen something like this where there's because a lot of people grow up poor, Jean. A lot of people grow up in violent households where their dad beats them and stuff. I've never seen something like this. So do you have any idea? I mean, obviously you don't know, but do you have any ideas? Why is this family, for lack of, was jinxed?
This one is, I will say this is unusual. And to add to it, I looked up Terry Blair. He's got his own Wikipedia page,
Yeah, he does.
So I looked it up, and it talks about how two cousins, or nephews of his were also convicted of murder. And I thought, oh, I convicted them myself. And then I looked at the names, and I'm like, oh no, those are not the ones I convicted.
Wow.
So as an assistant prosecutor, I actually prosecuted D'Angelo Blair for murder and Dion Young for Blair. Both of those were the nephews of Terry Blair as well, in a completely separate murder. So how does one? I don't know. I don't know what to tell people, except that I don't believe, of course, that you got a DNA gene that's went awry, and you got a murder gene. I don't know. Perhaps there are certain people out there that commit crime and heinous crime, but there's just too many circumstances here that you can't ignore the environmental influences that that happened to this family that probably caused some of this to occur. Now, I am not making excuses. Of course I'm not, because I've prosecuted all of these people.
Right.
And I didn't use, I didn't have to try and make excuses for them in courtrooms. I just prosecuted them for their conduct. So I'm not doing that here either, but it is a really curious question, and one that, somebody with a different level of experience and education perhaps could answer instead of me. I don't get it. But I do find it a bit fascinating that Terry Blair's family could have this incredible number of people convicted of murder.
Yeah. Yeah. Gene, if I may, you not only served in even when you were an assistant prosecutor, but you've served in a tough job. There's no way around it. You talked about requiring your folks to go out to a crime scene. That's nobody's idea of a good time, I don't think. Right?
They don't happen at 2 p.m. They happen at 2 a.m.
Yeah, I was a reporter. I know. And of course, I always felt like a damn ghoul when I would have to go show up and ask questions and look around. But it's just the job. You just get over that. But I guess the thing I wanted to ask you, though, because you seemed so remarkably
well-adjusted.
Well-adjusted.
Careful. What's your words?
Well-adjusted. How about well-adjusted?
Yes, totally.
But also, I was gonna weigh it with the job, but also there's another job you did. You were a politician. Now, I've had a lot of lives. I was in politics too, so I just, not here, but elsewhere. But I'm just trying to say is, you've done both of those things.
Yeah.
And look at you. I really feel like, and I've seen other interviews with you. You did a lot of exit interviews on your way out of town.
I did.
You did. Good PR. Nice job. And we didn't even get into some of the, unfortunate things that happened around a case you did with the police detective who you prosecuted. But the point I'm trying to make is, when we say well-adjusted, that's just also a way of saying you just seem tough as nails. But I've just talked to you for an hour, and I feel like there's so much humanity there with you. And I'm just curious, Gene, how you doing? How does it feel? You're at a remove now. We're not going to say where you are, but you're not in Kansas City. You've moved on. You got another chapter in your life. I'd love for the people of Kansas City just to hear, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Honestly, I'm really doing great. I loved that job. And it did not love me. But I did love the job. I loved being an assistant prosecutor. I loved prosecuting somebody like Terry Blair, not from a vengeance perspective, but Terry Blair needed to be prosecuted. And he needed a good prosecution team that was going to study, stay up late, do everything that was needed to make sure not just that Terry got convicted, but all those women and their families, that they got a little piece of justice. And that little piece of justice is so critical, because it's what encourages the rest of us that this world we all live in, it works.
Yeah.
The society we live in, it works. There's good pieces of it that work for us. And now the politics of it, man, that just, I just couldn't get out of the political spin that I was in, like it just became cops decided we hate her and we're going to actively hate her. And so, that just got yucky, and I just couldn't unyuck that up, I guess. You know what I mean? Because I still do have a real fighting spirit in me, and I'm not going to back down from fights, and so it was time to turn those reins over to someone else and just see how they could do the job, and let me live a little bit, let me breathe a little bit, let me find another way, to help all the Sheilahs and the Patricias and Carmen's. I'm trying to remember all the names in that case. Cherry was even a surviving victim. These lovely people that really need someone to fight for them.
Right.
And I think there'll be another place for me to do that.
Well, we could talk to you forever, and you have an open invitation. So,
all right,
you do.
Retirement comes on, and you're like, man, I really want to talk about that case, or I want to talk about. You're more than welcome to
set up though. I'm gonna chastise you about the name of your.
Here it comes.
Podcast.
I thought we were going to get away.
Every time.
We're going to get away. We're going to get away. No, we're not going to get away with it. All right.
Well, Gene, from PR, going to Killing City as opposed to going to Kansas City, it flows off your. No, okay.
No.
That's all right. You can't
like it
anymore.
Just don't like it, fellas.
If
like
we
you guys, I like you guys.
Oh, good.
Don't like your name,
Jamie. It's on you, buddy. Because
I know it is.
I told you. I told you. Someday we're gonna have a legendary prosecutor on the show, and she's gonna tell you.
Wagging her finger, wag. Look at it.
Right.
Look at it.
She's
I have 3 older sisters, Gene. I'm used to people wagging their finger.
I bet so.
You don't need an older one. I got a baby one that does that to me too. But Gene, seriously, the door is always open. You're always welcome. I hope we didn't bore you too much with our questions, but I'm just fascinated by the work, and if I may say so, please, as a former citizen of Jackson County, thank you for help keeping us safe. Thank you. You don't get thanked enough. By the way, my nephew is a police lieutenant in another city. Okay.
Yes.
He's a very good man. He's taking care of.
There are many very good men in the police force
and women. But I just want to say though that I understand. You really were between a rock and a hard place a lot. And but if nobody said it enough, I'll say it. Thank you very much.
Hey, it was my pleasure, buddy. I was so pleased to do that job. So glad I got an opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
Amen. Relax and enjoy your retirement. Come back anytime. It was so nice to have you. I really appreciate it.
Here's to Gene. Cheers.
And next month's episode, my hint to Alex is boom goes the dynamite. Again, the hint is boom goes the dynamite. Until next time, people.
Grammy Award-winning violinist Joshua Bell returns to the San Francisco Symphony. Experience the power, precision, and passion of one of the world's great violinists. Hear Joshua Bell in Brahms' famed Violin Concerto with the Academy of St. Martin in the Fields. That's Joshua Bell, March 1st at the San Francisco Symphony. Tickets at sfsymphony.org.